Now, of course, the Middle East has been a chaos for a very long period, actually already starting from the Islamic Revolution in Iran, then the Iran-Iraq war, then the Gulf Wars, invasion of Iraq, Afghanistan, ISIS, the next phase. Now, always you believe that when now this phase of madness or craziness has somehow quieted down, then in 1 or 2 years something new starts. So we, although we are all scholars of ancient history, still we, as you also spoke, that we have missions who are excavating in Iraq right now, Western excavations in Lebanon. We also visited museums in Beirut when we have been in conferences. Actually, Lebanese museums are very nice, and also their excavations. I also have met a professor of archaeology and visited the history department in American University of Iraq. Very, very nice and very famous and good quality scholars. But yeah, what is now again for almost for 2 weeks now has been happening. So Iraq is again in danger. We don't know what Iran plans to do next. Nobody knows. Even the full-scale invasion of Iraq is imaginable. Of course, Americans will react, but we have also war in Ukraine. The Americans also have their limits. Europe has no armies except Finland and Eastern Europe. So the situation seems again kind of hopeless. So what could you, how would you characterize not what is happening right now, or how do you see the future?
Well, let us perhaps, Peter, I would suggest that we go with a few words to the past. The situation presently is very, very depressing, no doubt about this. But we should keep in mind that the ancient Near East, not the modern Near East, always was a place of turmoil. You had several ethnic groups. You had starting, let us say, with the Sumer and the Semitic-speaking people followed them. Then you have people from the mountains who came into Mesopotamia because the conditions of life were much better there than in the mountains. Then you had, of course, the Persian Empire and the aftermath. And you had, in the modern times, let us say, you have the breakdown of the Osmanic world at the end of the 19th, the beginning of the 20th centuries, with the birth of the Turkish Republic, which created problems which still linger around. And then you had, of course, the situation in pre-Second World War with the Holocaust. You did have the situation afterwards with the British Mandate of Palestine and the hesitation to accept the establishment of Israel. So all these things are still around in a way and never have been solved. And I think there is one thing which is evident, and this connects, let us say, to the situation in Europe, with, that you did have the imperialistic phase in the 19th century in the ancient Near East and far beyond. Which, by the way, is somehow connected with the work of Edward Said on Orientalism. I have to mention him, though I do not subscribe to his completely to his notion. Of course, imperialistic power produces a certain type of scholarship even, but it would be utterly wrong to assume that the motivation of those who did the initial, our forefathers, so to say, in the history, that they were motivated by imperialistic motives. No, this is absolutely, generally there have been some, as always, there have been some exception, but it is astonishing. The motivation was scholarship and the search of knowledge and better understanding the history of humankind. So presently the situation, I think it's, I cannot imagine even a way out. When this started and the atrocities of Hamas in the border region of the Gaza Strip became known, I wrote to a friend of mine, and we have a common friend who lived in a kibbutz in Nahal Oz near the Gaza border, which I visited once, and I stood there for a week. And so I sort of expressed my shocks, and it was very interesting to see that the Israeli woman actually answered that she said, we have no other chance than to give up, we should not give up the hope that after this terrible situation, there might be eventually a peace solution. But this needs, of course, in the moment it doesn't look like, I agree, there is, these, these criminal psychopaths from Hamas or from ISIS, I think they are, they are basically psychopathic people, is they, in a way, unfortunately, achieved that the look on Islam, on let us say on Islamic societies is blurred by this behavior. That's my personal opinion. This does not exclude the notion that Islam, on the other side, has certainly, in a way, to be reformed. No doubt about this. And unless this is not be done, the problems will still prevail. And the same, of course, is, in my opinion, is my personal opinion, nobody has to share this, is true for the right-wing Jews in Israel, the extreme Orthodox Jews, these settler movement and all this are a hurdle actually for a peace solution. After all, you have two peoples who actually hopefully better sooner than later will find a way to arrange and find a solution, because it is the commoner actually is affected by this. He is suffering. Suffering are the simple people, much more than these crazy leaders they have. And with as I said, there is this unreformed fanatic Islamism of the one side, and there's on the other side, let us say, the Israeli right-wing settlers movement, which in part at least has imperialistic dreams as well.
And this fanatical, utopical ideas that are ultra-orthodox and this extreme right-wing Jews also, they have some picture of the future Israel and the reformation of the entire world when after they have this ultra hysterical religious Judaistic influences. They are not so different from Islamic. No. The only difference is that the Jews don't. There's ultra religious Jews. They are not terrorists in that sense. Yes, they behave badly. Their parties are very strange and hysterical and fanatical, but in that sense they are not. They haven't got such a terrorist way of thinking compared to Hamas and ISIS, but yeah, as you told, yeah, both these points of view have to change, otherwise.
Yeah, you see, there is one point. Of course, let us say there are a number of fanatics on both sides, and presently, because of these awful atrocities which nobody actually could foresee, our focus is on Hamas or maybe in Hezbollah and comparable people. But Yitzhak Rabin was killed. Why? From a Jew. Yeah, Goldberg or Goldstein was his name. I forgot it actually. So you see that if you have this dehumanizing strategy that you do contest another human, that he is human and has human rights. When you do this, the danger is very, very big that you end up in this sort of fanatism, dehumanization. And I think the only way out is actually that we, despite the difficulties we encounter presently, that we held up the idea of a common human culture, in a way. And perhaps our research, Peter, with this stuff, does a little bit of helping to shed a little bit of light on the history, because the history is full of these kind of wars and imperialistic movement and all this sort of stuff. And if you look at Ukraine, which you mentioned earlier, the situation there for me is so clearly a repetition of the situation of the early decades of the 20th century. So you have again an imperialistic power, imperialistic movement with certain pretexts, of course, or with certain justifications, but which leads to the catastrophe. Not we, but at least the Ukrainian people and the neighboring countries encounter presently.
Oh, yeah, in Israel, during the government of Sharon, the settlers were forcibly deported from Gaza areas. So it always has been interesting that also Israeli Prime Minister Begin in the late 70s and the 80s. He also actually wanted peace. Always, also Begin and Sharon and Netanyahu, they are always blamed for different wars or too much right-wing thinking or conservative thinking. But it is strange that they have tried. They have all wanted to get peace, and even Sharon, who is often demonized, he didn't want to. He didn't want to annihilate the other side, but he was finding some sort of a solution. And what is sad that both parties or both ways of thinking in Israel, they have tried in their own ways, and nothing has happened. So.
Yeah, but you see the situation, I'm not so familiar with the internal Israeli politics, but you may look at Sadat, for instance. Sadat, who was clearly anti-Israeli at the beginning, he noticed, but he was clever enough to see that there must somehow be found a solution for these ethnic groups and religious groups, by the way, to live together. And so there are sensible people, despite their narrow look on it. And this is, I think, it's the only hope that on every side, the fanatics, not to speak about these psychopaths we encountered in a moment from ISIS and Hamas, that they will prevail. I hope so. This is.
Now the new peace agreements Israel had with Arab Emirates and Bahrain and Sudan and Morocco. Now Saudi Arabia was to follow. It would have been a major step towards the peace. That means that actually most of the Arabs and also rich Arab countries and Egypt already several decades, they actually have started to accept Israel, and actually we all see that Israel and most of the Arab states actually they want peace. So it is when some more, let's say Saudi Arabia, they establish diplomatic relations and stop completely demonizing Israel. So it will happen soon, hopefully soon, maybe because of the war now later. It is already a good beginning, but it doesn't change the existence of the fanatics, now mostly financed by Iran and also fanatics inside Israel. So in that sense, yeah, what helps against the fanatics? It is probably a question more old than 1 century.
Yeah, Peter, I hope you're right, but I'm a bit skeptical because let us say this movement, this political movement, let us say this sort of attempting to get agreements, I'm a bit skeptical that it is such a big step forward. There are several reasons. First of all, despite the fact that Saudi Arabia in the last 10 years or so under Salman attempted to modernize the country, you should not underestimate the traditional Wahhabite society, who has much influence on the common people. And the same, I think, applies to the other oil-rich countries, be it the United Emirates, be it Qatar. At least it's better that they go to war. I agree, but there is a long way to go till we reach a situation where, let us say, this really becomes productive. Egypt in the moment. Egypt is an autocratic regime, with Al-Sisi. It is functioning more or less, but still you do have the Muslim brothers in the hidden and officially, what do you call it? Not being officially acknowledged.
Hamas is also Islamic Brotherhood, actually.
So you see, there is of course a lot of problems ahead. I'm sure politicians, intelligent politicians, have been told that there is a possibility that we have intelligent politicians. They are aware of this. But frankly, we have no other choice. This is, it does affect us presently, and it will affect us in the future.
Yeah, in that sense, yes, it is a great danger because we all know for several decades actually that Saudi royal family is quite Western-minded and quite liberal in the sense of Saudi Arabia liberal, and they live actually and think like almost Europeans. It is a wrong word, but they have a modern sense of analyzing the world. But how the Saudi and other nations also in this region, how the Saudi people and this fanatic Islamist influenced common people react, there is always a possibility of interior revolutions and turmoil. So simply, I think we have to hope that it is somehow also this mindset of people in Saudi Arabia and other countries. Maybe they read more news and get access to internet and start maybe 50 years or 100 years, so they will be more informed about.
I hope that, and I think this is a conditio sine qua non, a precondition, is that Europe finally will play the role it could have. We have numerous people, we are quite rich people, and what happens so often, unfortunately, is that first of all, we blame always the institution in Brussels for everything which goes wrong. which is absolutely incorrect. You know, there's a lot of things going on. And then we do look for our special, so let us say, national ways. You know, so we are more concerned, let us say, with our internal politics and have not put the possible influence of Europe, let us say, into a productive solution of the situation in the Near East. And I hope that Europe will jointly find or support the ways out of this catastrophe. In the moment it looks so catastrophic, really depressing.
We both actually in 2017 we visited even the capital of Hezbollah, Tyros, and we had dinner almost next to the Israeli and Lebanese border. I would say that one terrorist group that has a bit changed might be called Hezbollah, because as you saw they sell beer and these bearded people drink beer in the Hezbollah controlled countries. And even when we visited Baalbek and Bekaa Valley, there was everywhere alcohol available and people dressed like everywhere in the world, and had women had décolletés and mini skirts, and that means Hezbollah has become less fanatical probably. I know some military persons who were there, so they said that in the 90s alcohol was something unavailable, unacceptable. So now we have a conflict with Hezbollah that is financed completely by Iran, like Hamas also is financed. So what do you think? Maybe there is a chance to get some, after the hopeful fall of the Iran regime, there might be a chance to make some deal inside Lebanon and with Hezbollah. Right now they are complete terrorists, but there is some hope, I think, in that case.
I hope so, that there is. I think there is a little hope, and I hope so that that this can be achieved. The only thing is, my feeling is that Europe, as well as the United States, overslept many promising situations in the last decades. You know, we cannot, in a way I had sometimes the feeling that our politicians generally were satisfied that it's kept, let us say, on a low level. You know, there have been conflicts, but they somehow thought that it would be under control. And evidently it wasn't. It was an illusion. And the consequence should be, I think, that we help and engage. I think especially Europe maybe has a much better standing here than the US, you know, because the US and Israel relationship is something which has a special side. But Europe jointly should actually put its weight into for the future, for a peaceful future, which, let's say, gives the right to Palestinians and Jewish and Christians and Muslims, Jews and Christian Muslims, in a way they can have a decent life without being threatened by this horrible antagonism as it is in the moment.
There is something positive still available, but now we probably all must be a bit skeptical also, at least for the
at least it needs effort. We have to admit it. It will not come from spring up automatically. It needs our effort.